Don't show your face at Christine's wedding. You're a disgrace, my mother barked, her face contorted with rage. I stood frozen, staring at my bank account showing $38,700 missing, the money I had saved for 5 years, the money she had taken without asking. My sister's perfect wedding, funded by my sacrifice, suddenly felt like a knife in my back. Then watch it burn without my money, I snapped, my voice surprisingly steady, as I pulled out my phone ready to cancel the venue flights and every single payment I had made. I've always been the responsible one in our family. At 32 years old, I had built a stable career as a financial analyst, maintained a modest apartment in Seattle, and diligently saved for my future. My sister, Christine, on the other hand, lived like tomorrow would never come. 3 years younger than me, she floated through life on her beauty charm and our mother's unconditional support. Mom always had a special place in her heart for Christine. While I got practical gifts like savings, bonds, and sensible clothing, Christine received jewelry trips and endless second chances. It wasn't that my mother Diana didn't love me. She just seemed to understand Christine better. They shared the same zest for life, the same appreciation for beauty and luxury, while I inherited my father's pragmatism. After Dad died when I was 12, I unconsciously stepped into the role of family stabilizer. Sonia, you need to loosen up, Mom would say whenever I expressed concern about her enabling Christine's spending habits. Life is short. Your sister just knows how to enjoy it. 6 months ago, Christine burst into my apartment, unannounced, a massive diamond ring catching the light. James proposed, she squealed, throwing her arms around my neck. James Wilson came from old money with family connections stretching back generations in Boston. He worked at his father's investment firm and seemed genuinely in love with my sister. I was truly happy for her. Despite our differences, I loved Christine and wanted her happiness. What I wasn't prepared for was what came next. His parents are traditional, Christine explained over coffee at my kitchen table. They expect a proper wedding. 300 guests, minimum. I nodded, already calculating the astronomical cost in my head. James's parents are contributing, of course, she continued, but they expect the bride's family to handle certain elements. Mom and I were hoping you could help. There it was, the ask. I sipped my coffee slowly. How much are we talking about, Christine? My sister exchanged a look with our mother, who had been suspiciously quiet. We were thinking $40,000, Mom finally said, for the venue, catering, and flowers. I nearly choked. That's almost all of my house down payment savings. It's your sister's wedding, Sonia, Mom said, her voice taking on the guilt-inducing tone. I knew all too well. Don't you want her to have the perfect day? You know we'd do the same for you. I doubted that very much, but I bit my tongue. Christine's eyes filled with tears right on cue. I've always imagined getting married at the Lakeside Manor, she whispered. And you're so good with money, Sonia. You'll save it up again in no time. I should have stood firm. I should have offered a smaller amount, something reasonable that wouldn't derail my own plans. But a lifetime of family conditioning is hard to break. I'll help, I said finally. But I want to be clear about what I'm paying for, and I need to control the payments. The joy on Christine's face almost made it worth it. Almost. We agreed that I would handle specific expenses, $10,000 for the venue deposit, $15,000 for catering, $8,000 for flowers, and $7,000 for the photographer. I opened a separate account specifically for these wedding expenses and began making deposits and arrangements with vendors. 1 month into planning, Mom suggested I add her name to the account just in case of emergency. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Christine was busy with dress shopping and guest lists, and Mom had more time to deal with vendors when I was working. Then came the morning that changed everything. A routine check of the wedding account before work revealed a balance of $1,300. $38,700 was gone, transferred out 2 days earlier to an account I didn't recognize. My hands shook as I called my mother. "Oh," that Mom said casually when I finally reached her, as if I'd asked about a borrowed sweater rather than nearly $40,000. I had to move some money around for other wedding expenses. My heart pounded in my ears. What other expenses? We had a clear agreement about what I was covering. Well, darling, weddings evolve. The catering quote came in higher than expected. And Christine needed a proper honeymoon wardrobe. I gripped my phone tighter. You took my money for Christine's honeymoon clothes. Don't be so dramatic, Sonia. It's just money. You'll make more. That's not the point, Mom. You should have asked me first. I need that money back. I have payments scheduled for the venue next week. Her tone instantly chilled. I thought you wanted to contribute to your sister's happiness. Now you're bean counting. This is why Christine connects with me more than you. I understand the importance of these moments. I heard Christine's voice in the background, and then she was on the phone. Sonia, what's your problem? She demanded. Are you seriously freaking out about helping with my wedding? God, you're so jealous, it's pathetic. I'm not jealous, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. I agreed to help with specific things, not to hand over a blank check. We're family, Christine shot back. There shouldn't be conditions on your support. The conversation devolved from there, with both of them talking over me until I was nearly in tears from frustration. Finally, Mom suggested a family dinner that weekend to discuss things civilly. Fine, I agreed, desperate to end the call. Saturday at 6. I spent the next 2 days in a fog of disbelief and betrayal. My friend Marissa urged me to skip the dinner. They're manipulating you, Sonia. You know that, right? I knew she was right, but some stubborn part of me still hoped we could resolve things reasonably. Saturday evening, I arrived at Mom's house with a folder containing bank statements and a carefully prepared explanation of my position. I'd even calculated a reduced contribution I could still manage without completely derailing my life plans. My stomach dropped when I saw unfamiliar luxury cars in the driveway. Inside, I found not just Mom and Christine, but also James and his parents, Robert and Grace Wilson. They were impeccably dressed and clearly uncomfortable. There she is, Mom exclaimed with artificial brightness. Sonia, you remember the Wilsons. I shook hands politely while shooting my mother a questioning look. She ignored it completely. Dinner was excruciating. Mom and Christine dominated the conversation with wedding plans, mentioning details that were news to me despite supposedly being paid for with my money. The Wilsons asked polite questions about my work and life, which Mom repeatedly interrupted with stories about Christine. Excuse me, I finally said during a brief lull in conversation. I thought we were going to discuss the financial arrangements for the wedding. An awkward silence fell over the table. James's father cleared his throat. I was under the impression those matters were settled, Robert said carefully. Not exactly. I began reaching for my folder. There's been a miscommunication about my contribution. Mom's eyes flashed dangerously. Sonia, this isn't appropriate dinner conversation. You're the one who suggested this dinner to discuss things, I reminded her. Not in front of the Wilsons, she hissed. Why not? They're investing in this wedding too. Shouldn't we all be clear about who's paying for what? Christine's face flushed crimson. Sonia, shut up. You're embarrassing me. I'm embarrassing you. Mom took nearly $40,000 from my account without permission, and I'm the problem. The Wilsons exchanged alarmed glances. James stared at his plate. Mom stood suddenly, her napkin falling to the floor. Her voice rang through the dining room like a whip crack. Don't show your face at Christine's wedding. You're a disgrace, she barked, pointing toward the door. You've never supported your sister. All you care about is money. I sat in stunned silence as years of being the responsible one, the supportive one, the one who always sacrificed, crashed down around me. Diana Grace Wilson said quietly, surely that's not necessary. But my mother was beyond reason. Sonia has always been jealous of Christine's happiness. She's trying to ruin this wedding because she can't stand to see her sister have something beautiful. I looked at Christine, waiting for her to defend me, to acknowledge all I'd done to support her. She stared back coldly before turning to James with tears in her eyes. See what I have to deal with, my own sister trying to ruin my special day. Something broke inside me then. I stood up, gathered my things, and walked out without another word, my mother's accusation ringing in my ears. Don't show your face at Christine's wedding. You're a disgrace. I spent that night on Marissa's couch, alternating between rage and gut-wrenching sobs. My oldest friend sat with me, replenishing tissues and reminding me I wasn't crazy. Your mother stole from you, she said firmly. And Christine is enabling it. This isn't your fault. But it's my sister's wedding, I whispered. Am I being selfish? Sonia, Marissa said, taking my hands. You were going to give up your house down payment. That's already above and beyond. They're the selfish ones, not you. The following days were a blur of emotional whiplash. I went to work on autopilot, avoiding calls from family members who had inevitably heard Mom's version of events. During lunch breaks, I scrolled mindlessly through social media only to be confronted with Christine's constant wedding updates. A post from 4 days earlier made my blood boil. Christine posing with our mother and a group of bridesmaids at an exclusive spa. The caption read, "Pre-wedding, pampering with my favorite ladies." I knew exactly which account had funded that spa day. Another post showed Christine modeling a designer wedding gown far more elaborate than the one we had budgeted for. Comments from our aunts and cousins gushed below. Absolute perfection and worth every penny. My pennies, I thought bitterly. I called the venue Lakeside Manor and asked to speak with the wedding planner assigned to the Wilson-Christine Murphy wedding. After confirming my identity, Angela, the planner, seemed confused. "Oh, Sonia, I thought Diana Murphy was the point of contact for all decisions. That's what she told us when she came in last month." My stomach clenched. "What else did she tell you?" "Well, she said she was handling all the financial aspects of the wedding. She made several changes to the original package you selected. Upgraded the menu, added a champagne fountain, expanded the floral arrangements. We've been billing the account she provided." The account I opened. The account she drained. "And did Diana mention that I was the maid of honor?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Oh." Angela paused. "The bride's sister is listed as Bethany, not Sonia. Are you perhaps a friend of the family?" That confirmation hurt more than it should have. Not only had they taken my money, they'd erased me from the wedding entirely. That evening, my cousin Taylor called. We'd always been close, and I was relieved to hear a friendly voice. "I've been trying to reach you," she said. "Are you okay? Aunt Diana has been saying some pretty harsh things." "Like what I asked, though, I could imagine. She's telling everyone you refuse to help with the wedding because you're jealous of Christine. That you're trying to sabotage everything because you're bitter about being single. It's getting ugly, Sonia." I told Taylor the truth, including the theft of my savings. Her shock was validating. "That's criminal," she gasped. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet," I admitted. "But I'm not letting this go." Before we hung up, Taylor hesitated. "There's something else. James's mother has been asking questions about the wedding finances. Apparently there's confusion about who's contributing what." That night I received an unexpected email from Grace Wilson requesting a private meeting. Her message was polite but direct. There seemed to be discrepancies in what we've been told about the wedding finances. "James's father and I were informed that you were contributing $5,000 while Diana claimed she was covering $35,000 herself. Given your abrupt departure at dinner, I suspect there may be more to this situation than we understand." We arranged to meet at a quiet cafe the following afternoon. I brought my bank statements and vendor contracts, determined to set the record straight. Grace Wilson was already seated when I arrived, elegant in a simple navy dress, her silver hair neatly styled. She stood to greet me with a firm handshake. "Thank you for meeting me, Sonia. I appreciate your candor." I took a deep breath. "I want to be clear that my issues are with my mother and sister, not with James or your family. I think James is a good man, and I was genuinely happy about their engagement." Grace nodded. "James cares deeply for Christine, though I'll admit recent events have raised some concerns." She explained that Diana had approached them multiple times for additional contributions, claiming financial hardship. Meanwhile, Christine's increasingly extravagant demands had made James uncomfortable. "We value financial responsibility," Grace said. "It's concerning that Christine seems to have expensive tastes without the means to support them." I showed Grace my bank statements proving my $38,700 contribution and the subsequent unauthorized withdrawal. Her eyes widened. "This is more serious than I thought," she murmured. "Diana has been taking credit for your contribution while asking us for more." She hesitated before adding, "James is having doubts about the wedding. Not just because of the money issues, but because of how Christine has behaved throughout this process. He's worried this reflects deeper compatibility problems." As we parted ways, Grace squeezed my hand. "Thank you for your honesty. I'll discuss this with Robert and James. Whatever happens, please know we don't blame you for any of this." That evening I met with my friend Andrew, who happened to be an attorney. Over dinner I explained the situation and asked about my legal options. "You have several," he said firmly. "Unauthorized transfer of funds is theft, even when it's family. You could file a police report, pursue civil action, or both. At minimum, you can contact the vendors directly to cancel any services you paid for." "Would that make me the bad guy?" I asked, voicing my deepest fear. "Ruining my sister's wedding." Andrew's expression softened. "Sonia, they stole your money, removed you from the wedding, and are now villainizing you to your family. You're not the bad guy for standing up for yourself." Armed with new resolve, I spent the next day gathering every email, text, and contract related to the wedding. I created a detailed spreadsheet of all payments I had made or authorized, determined to reclaim control of the situation. As I reviewed credit card statements, my blood ran cold. There were charges I didn't recognize from vendors I hadn't approved. Somehow, additional payments totaling $12,000 had been made using my credit card information. My mother hadn't just taken what was in the wedding account, she had committed fraud. The discovery of the fraudulent credit card charges changed everything. This wasn't just family drama anymore, this was criminal. I spent hours on the phone with my credit card company filing disputes and explaining the situation to increasingly concerned customer service representatives. "Ma'am, you may want to consider filing a police report," one told me gently. "This is clearly identity theft." The thought of reporting my own mother to the police made me physically ill. Despite everything, she was still my mother, and Christine was still my sister. I needed to give them one more chance to make this right. I met Grace Wilson for coffee again, updating her on my discoveries. Her normally composed face showed genuine shock when I revealed the credit card fraud. "Sonia, this is beyond a family disagreement," she said. "Diana has committed crimes against you." "I know," I admitted, "but I want to give them a chance to return the money before I take legal action." Grace shared more about James's increasing doubts. He had witnessed Christine's tantrums when things didn't go her way, her dismissive treatment of service staff, and her apparent comfort with spending money they didn't have. "James values honesty and responsibility," Grace explained. "He's beginning to wonder if Christine shares those values." "She wasn't always like this. I found myself defending my sister. Mom encouraged her worst tendencies. Christine never had to face consequences." Grace nodded sympathetically. "Regardless, you deserve your money back. And James deserves to know what kind of family he's potentially marrying into." When I returned home, a text from Christine was waiting. "Need to talk. Fix things with James's family. Now." Not an apology, not an acknowledgement of theft, just another demand. I didn't respond. Instead, I continued my methodical documentation of all wedding expenses. I contacted vendors directly explaining that I was the original source of payment and requesting copies of all communications and contract modifications. Most were helpful, though. Several mentioned that Diana had instructed them to only speak with her going forward. My lawyer friend Andrew reviewed everything and helped me draft formal letters to my mother and sister outlining the unauthorized transfers and fraudulent charges with a clear demand for full restitution within 48 hours. After that, Andrew advised we move to formal legal action and contacting vendors to cancel services. I hand-delivered the letters to my mother's house, leaving them in the mailbox when no one answered the door. Within an hour, my phone exploded with calls and texts from both of them. I let everything go to voicemail, listening later with Andrew present for moral support. "How dare you threaten us?" My mother's voice shook with rage. "After everything I've done for you, you would humiliate our family with legal action over money. Your sister's happiness means nothing to you." Christine's message was worse. "You jealous, pathetic bitch. You've always resented me. I know you've been poisoning James's parents against me. If my wedding falls apart because of you, I'll never forgive you. No one will." I closed my eyes, letting their words wash over me without penetrating. When the messages ended, Andrew squeezed my shoulder. "You okay?" "Actually, yes," I realized with surprise. "For the first time, I can see them clearly. This isn't love. It's control and manipulation." Later that evening, I received a text from an unknown number. "Sonia, this is James. Can we meet tomorrow alone?" We arranged to meet at a park near my apartment. James looked exhausted, his usually immaculate appearance slightly rumpled. "I'm sorry about all this," he began awkwardly. "My parents told me what really happened with the wedding finances." I nodded, uncertain what to say. "I had no idea you were contributing so much," he continued. "Christine told me your mother was handling everything with you, pitching in $5,000. I committed $40,000 initially," I said quietly. "They took $50,000 total, including the credit card fraud." James paled. "Credit card fraud." I explained everything about the additional charges, showing him my documentation. His hands trembled slightly as he returned my folder. "I don't know who Christine is anymore," he confessed. "When we started dating, she was spontaneous and fun, but responsible. Lately, she's been someone else, entirely obsessed with appearances, spending wildly, treating people terribly. Wedding stress affects people differently," I offered, still instinctively protecting my sister despite everything. James shook his head. "It's more than that. I'm starting to wonder if she ever really was the person I thought I fell in love with." He paused. "Are you really going to take legal action?" "Only if they don't return my money," I said. "I've given them 48 hours. He nodded slowly. I understand. For what it's worth, I think you're right to stand up for yourself. As we parted ways, James hesitated. Sonia, whatever happens with the wedding, I want you to know I would have been proud to have you as a sister-in-law. That evening, I received a furious call from my mother. We need to talk. Now. I agreed to meet them at my mother's house, bringing Andrew along as both witness and support. Diana's face darkened when she saw him. You brought a lawyer to a family meeting. How dramatic. Given that we're discussing theft and fraud, I thought it was appropriate, I replied calmly. We sat in the living room, Christine perched beside our mother on the sofa, both of them glaring at me. I've reviewed your ridiculous demands, Diana began. You're overreacting as usual. I was simply reallocating funds for the wedding. Funds you had already committed. I committed to specific expenses. I corrected her. Not a blank check. And I certainly never authorized you to use my credit card for additional charges. Christine rolled her eyes. God, you're so petty. It's not like you can't afford it. That's not the point, I said, fighting to keep my voice level. The point is you stole from me, lied about it, and then tried to paint me as the villain when I objected. Stole. My mother's voice rose dangerously. I'm your mother. Parents don't steal from their children. We make sacrifices for them, which you'd understand if you weren't so selfish. Andrew cleared his throat. Mrs. Murphy, unauthorized use of someone's funds is legally theft regardless of family relationship, and the credit card charges constitute identity fraud, which is a felony. My mother turned her glare on him. No one asked for your legal opinion. This is a family matter. It became a legal matter when you committed crimes, I said firmly. I'm giving you 48 hours to return all the money. After that, I'll be forced to take legal action and contact all the vendors to cancel the services I paid for. Christine launched to her feet. You wouldn't dare ruin my wedding. I don't want to, I admitted, but I won't let you steal from me either. You've always been jealous of me, Christine spat, always so uptight and judgy. Do you know what it's like having you as a sister, Miss Perfect, with her savings account and her practical shoes and her constant disapproval? No wonder you're alone. Who could love someone so rigid and cold? Her words stung, but I refused to show it. Is that why you decided I shouldn't be your maid of honor anymore? Christine had the grace to look momentarily embarrassed before recovering. I only asked you because Mom said I should. I never actually wanted you standing next to me. It would just highlight how much prettier and happier I am. My mother jumped in, her voice cutting. Sonia, you've been a disappointment since the day you were born. So serious, so contrary. Christine brings light into a room. You just bring problems and judgment. I sat very still, absorbing the full impact of words that must have been long held but never spoken. Beside me, Andrew shifted uncomfortably. Is that how you really feel? I asked quietly. Yes, my mother said coldly. And if you go through with these threats, don't expect to be part of this family anymore. I stood slowly gathering my things. Then watch it burn without my money, I said calmly, and walked out. In the car, Andrew let out a low whistle. That was intense. Are you okay? No, I admitted. But I will be. When I got home, I had a barrage of messages from vendors. My mother had apparently been busy calling each of them to claim that I was mentally unstable and that they should ignore any communication from me. Several expressed confusion and concern caught between conflicting instructions. The following morning brought no apology or offer of repayment from my mother or sister. Instead, Diana escalated her campaign, calling my extended family with tales of my mental breakdown and jealous rage over Christine's happiness. My phone filled with concerned and accusatory messages from relatives who had only heard her version of events. You need to stop this nonsense and support your sister, my Aunt Patricia admonished in a voicemail. I never thought you'd be so petty. It was time to implement Plan B. I visited my bank first thing, bringing all my documentation and meeting with a manager to formally dispute the unauthorized transfers. The manager's expression grew increasingly grave as I explained the situation. This is a clear case of account abuse, she confirmed. We'll initiate an investigation immediately. In the meantime, we've placed a hold on your account to prevent further unauthorized access. Next, I met Andrew at his office, where he helped me file a formal police report regarding the credit card fraud. We don't have to press charges immediately, he explained. This just creates an official record and might help convince your mother you're serious. I also had Andrew draft formal letters to all the vendors explaining the situation and officially withdrawing my financial support. The letters clearly stated that any further use of my payment information would be considered fraudulent. The venue was my first stop. The manager, Jennifer, received me in her office with a concerned expression. "We received some confusing calls from your mother yesterday," she began carefully. She seemed quite upset. "I imagine she was," I replied, handing over Andrew's letter. "I need to officially cancel the venue reservation that was made using my funds." Jennifer read the letter slowly. "This is highly unusual. The deposit has already been processed." "I understand. But that money was taken from my account without my authorization. I have documentation from the bank confirming this." I showed her my bank statements and the formal dispute filing. Jennifer's professional demeanor softened. "Actually, this isn't the first time we've seen something like this," she admitted. "Family weddings can bring out the worst in people. Let me see what I can do." By the end of our meeting, Jennifer had agreed to cancel the venue reservation and refund my deposit minus a small processing fee. She also provided copies of all communications with my mother, clearly showing how Diana had represented herself as the primary decision-maker and financial contributor. Over the next 2 days, I methodically contacted every vendor I had paid, explaining the situation and canceling services. Most were understanding, especially when presented with documentation. The florist, the caterer, the photographer, the transportation company all agreed to cancel and process refunds. The wedding planner, a woman named Brenda, who had primarily dealt with my mother, was more resistant. "This will devastate the bride," she argued. "Can't you work this out with your family?" "I've tried," I told her. "They refused. And legally, you cannot continue using my payments without my consent." Reluctantly, she agreed to cancel her services and process a partial refund. With each cancellation, I carefully documented the interaction, building a comprehensive paper trail. Andrew helped me file disputes for the fraudulent credit card charges, a process that would take longer to resolve but would eventually recover most of that money as well. By the evening of the second day, I had managed to cancel every service I had paid for. The wedding as planned was effectively dismantled. I felt no joy in this, only a sad certainty that it had been necessary. That night, James called me. "I thought you should know," he said hesitantly. "I've postponed the wedding indefinitely." My heart sank. Despite everything, I hadn't wanted to hurt him. "I'm sorry, James." "Don't be. This situation has revealed things about Christine and her family that I needed to know before committing to marriage. My parents agree." There was a pause before he continued. "Christine told me what you've done, canceling all the vendors. She's hysterical." "I gave them a chance to return my money," I reminded him. "They refused." "I know. And for what it's worth, I think you did the right thing." He sighed heavily. "I care for Christine, but I can't build a life with someone who thinks it's acceptable to treat family this way. Or anyone, really." After we hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment feeling strangely empty. I had stood up for myself, but the cost had been high. My family relationships lay in ruins, and though I didn't regret my actions, I mourned what had been lost. The doorbell rang just after 10. Through the peephole, I saw Christine mascara streak down her face. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. She pushed past me into the apartment. "Are you happy now? You've ruined everything." "I didn't ruin anything, Christine. You and Mom did that when you stole from me." "It wasn't stealing," she shouted. "We were going to pay you back eventually." "Maybe. Eventually, maybe. That's not how this works. You don't take someone's money without permission, and then decide, maybe, you'll return it eventually." Christine paced my living room like a caged animal. James postponed the wedding. His mother told him everything. The venue, the money, all of it. "He thinks I'm some kind of gold digger." "Aren't you?" I asked quietly. "You took $50,000 from me without permission. What would you call that?" Her face contorted with rage. "You've always been jealous of me. You couldn't stand that I was getting married first, that I found someone who loves me. You had to ruin it." "I was happy for you, Christine. I gave up my house down payment to help with your wedding. How is that jealousy?" "Then why cancel everything? Why talk to James's parents? You've turned them against me." I shook my head. "I told them the truth. That's all." Christine suddenly collapsed onto my couch, sobbing. "It's over. Everything's over. And it's all your fault." I sat beside her, maintaining some distance. "It's not over unless you choose to make it over. You could take responsibility. Apologize to James, to me. Show him you understand what went wrong." She looked up, her expression shifting from despair to calculation. "We were going to ask for another 20,000, you know, for the honeymoon. Mom said you'd give in eventually. You always do." The casual cruelty of her admission left me speechless. You should have just given us the money without all the questions and conditions, she continued. This is what happens when you're difficult. In that moment, I saw my sister clearly, perhaps for the first time. The pretty packaging had fallen away, revealing the entitled, manipulative person she had become. Or perhaps had always been. I think you should leave, I said quietly. Christine stood suddenly composed. Mom was right. You are a disgrace. No one will blame us when they hear how you destroyed my wedding out of spite. Tell whatever story you want, Christine. The truth will come out eventually. She slammed the door on her way out. I leaned against it, finally allowing myself to cry for the sister I thought I had, for the family I had lost, and for the painful clarity that had come at such a high price. The 48-hour ultimatum passed with no offer of repayment, only increasing hostility. Diana launched a vicious social media campaign against me, posting tearful pictures of Christine and long diatribes about family betrayal and mental instability. My phone continued to fill with messages from relatives and family friends, some concerned, others accusatory. I changed my phone number and deactivated my social media accounts, creating a protective bubble around myself as I continued the methodical process of reclaiming my money and my life. The bank investigation moved quickly, confirming the unauthorized transfers. Within a week, they had reversed the transactions, returning $35,000 to my account. The credit card company was similarly efficient with most of the fraudulent charges, though 3 smaller vendors required additional documentation. Throughout this process, I maintained detailed records of every communication, every action taken. Andrew reviewed everything, providing both legal guidance and moral support. You're handling this remarkably well, he observed over lunch one day. Many people would have crumbled under this kind of family pressure. I almost did, I admitted. But something changed when I heard my mother say I'd been a disappointment since birth. It was like being freed from a lifetime of trying to earn her approval. Andrew nodded. Sometimes the most painful truths are also the most liberating. My cousin Taylor remained loyally in my corner, providing updates on the family fallout. Diana was painting herself and Christine as victims of my psychotic break, while Christine alternated between rage and performative despair. Most people are just confused, Taylor reported. They know you've always been the responsible one, so your mother's version doesn't quite add up. And James's parents have been surprisingly open about the financial situation, which contradicts what Aunt Diana is claiming. The venue manager, Jennifer, called me with unexpected news. I wanted you to know that your mother tried to rebook the venue using different payment information. When we explained the situation to the new credit card holder, he was quite shocked. I believe it was Christine's future father-in-law, Robert Wilson, I confirmed, my stomach sinking. Diana had tried to charge the venue to James's family. Yes, that's the name. He asked a lot of questions about the previous arrangements. I hope I didn't overstep by explaining what happened with your deposit. Not at all, I assured her. The Wilsons deserved to know the truth. Later that day, James texted me. Just learned your mother tried to put the venue on my father's credit card without permission. We're done. Wedding officially canceled, not just postponed. I felt a strange mix of vindication and sadness. Christine had lost something precious through her own actions, and despite everything, that knowledge brought me no joy. My mother made one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation, showing up at my workplace unannounced. Security escorted her from the building when she became belligerent, an incident that would have mortified me weeks earlier but now only reinforced the rightness of my decisions. That evening she left a voicemail, her voice slurred slightly. This isn't over, Sonia. You've destroyed your sister's happiness. I hope you're satisfied with yourself. I deleted the message without responding and slept soundly for the first time in weeks. 3 weeks after the initial confrontation, I had recovered most of my money. The legal process for the remaining fraudulent charges was underway, with good prospects for full restitution. I had blocked my mother and sister's numbers and begun rebuilding my life, without the constant weight of their expectations and manipulations. My apartment lease was ending in 2 months, and with my savings mostly restored, I renewed my search for a modest house I could call my own. With Andrew's encouragement, I began viewing properties in a quiet neighborhood I'd always admired. This one has potential, the realtor said as we toured a charming 2-bedroom craftsman with a small yard. It needs some updating, but the bones are good and the location is excellent. Standing in the sunny kitchen, I felt a surge of possibility. This could be mine, no strings attached, no family drama, just a space that reflected my values and priorities. I'd like to make an offer, I told the realtor, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. That weekend, as I celebrated the accepted offer with a small dinner party for Marissa Taylor and Andrew, I received an unexpected text from Grace Wilson. Sonia, I hope this finds you well. Robert and I wanted you to know that James has officially ended his relationship with Christine. We are grateful for your honesty throughout this difficult situation. While these aren't the family connections we anticipated, we value the integrity you've shown. You are welcome in our home anytime. I showed the message to my friends, feeling a bittersweet closure. Taylor raised her glass in a toast. To Sonia, who finally learned that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. I smiled, recognizing the truth in her words. The path forward wasn't perfectly clear yet, but for the first time in my life, it was truly mine to determine. As the weeks passed, more family members began reaching out, having heard conflicting stories about what really happened. My Aunt Patricia, who had initially been among my harshest critics, called after speaking with the Wilsons at a community function. I owe you an apology, Sonia, she said stiffly. It seems there's more to this situation than your mother let on. I accepted her apology graciously, but maintained my boundaries. Trust once broken couldn't be instantly restored. Then came the call I had been both expecting and dreading. My mother, her voice uncharacteristically subdued. Sonia, we need to talk. I think there have been misunderstandings on both sides. Notice there was no apology, no acknowledgement of theft or fraud, just a vague reference to misunderstandings. The old Sonia might have grasped at this olive branch, however flimsy. But I was no longer that person. I'm not ready for that conversation, Mom, I said firmly. You stole my money, committed fraud with my credit cards, and called me a disgrace and a disappointment. Those aren't misunderstandings, they're actions you chose to take. You're still my daughter, she pressed. We're still family. Family doesn't steal from each other, I replied. When you're ready to acknowledge what you did and make genuine amends, we can talk. Until then, I need space. I hung up, shaking but resolute. Setting boundaries with my mother was new territory, terrifying but necessary. Christine made no such overtures. According to Taylor, she had moved temporarily to Florida, staying with a friend, and posting cryptic social media updates about betrayal and new beginnings. I wished her well from a distance, hoping she might eventually find her way to greater self-awareness. As closing day on my new house approached, I found myself reflecting on the painful journey of the past few months. The wedding that never was had cost me much more than money. It had stripped away illusions about my family that I had clung to for decades. But in their place had come clarity, strength, and a newfound respect for myself that no one could take away. 3 months after the wedding that never happened, I stood in the sunny kitchen of my new home, arranging flowers in a vase Marissa had given me as a housewarming gift. The modest craftsman-style house was slowly taking shape around me, reflecting my taste and priorities in every careful choice, from the practical hardwood floors to the cozy reading nook under the front window. The journey to this moment had been far from easy. The final resolution of the credit card fraud had required formal charges, something I undertook with grim determination rather than vindictiveness. My mother had been ordered to pay restitution and perform community service, a relatively light consequence that nevertheless sent shockwaves through our family circle. Many relatives struggled to reconcile the Diana they thought they knew with someone capable of stealing from her own daughter. Christine had returned from Florida after a month subdued, and according to Taylor, humbled by reality. She had found a job as a receptionist at a local salon and moved into a small apartment she could actually afford. We hadn't spoken directly, but she had sent a brief, awkward email acknowledging that she had made some mistakes regarding the wedding finances. It wasn't exactly an apology, but it was a start. The hardest part wasn't the legal battles or even the family fallout. It was confronting the harsh reality that the mother I had tried so hard to please, and the sister I had protected and supported for years, had been willing to discard me so easily. That knowledge still ached like a bruised tender, when pressed but slowly healing. I had recovered all my savings plus additional damages from the fraud case. The money now sat safely in a new account, at a different bank, the majority having gone toward the down payment on my house, with the remainder invested for my future. The financial wounds at least had been repaired. The place looks amazing, Marissa said, entering the kitchen with a box of kitchenware. She had been helping me unpack all morning. It's so completely you. Is that a compliment? Or an insult? I asked, smiling. Definitely a compliment. Sensible but warm. Practical but beautiful. She set the box on the counter, just like its owner. The words my mother had flung at me during our final confrontation, so rigid and cold, had haunted me for weeks. Marissa's casual affirmation was a balm I hadn't realized I needed. "Thanks for helping," I said, blinking back unexpected tears. "I couldn't have gotten through this without you." "That's what friends are for," she replied simply. "Plus, I expect unlimited access to that beautiful backyard once you get the garden going." 6 months after the wedding debacle, I hosted a proper housewarming party. The late spring weather allowed for both indoor and outdoor gathering spaces with string lights illuminating the newly landscaped backyard. I had invited friends from work, neighbors I had begun to know, and the family members who had shown support throughout the ordeal. Taylor arrived early, helping me arrange platters of food. Aunt Diana asked if she was invited. She mentioned casually, watching my reaction. My chest tightened. "What did you tell her?" "The truth. That it was your house and your guest list, and she should speak to you directly if she wanted to come." I nodded, grateful for my cousin's tact. "She hasn't called. Would you have invited her if she had?" I considered the question carefully. "Probably not. Not yet. We've had a few conversations, but they've all been on her terms. She still hasn't really acknowledged what she did." Taylor nodded understanding. "And Christine?" "Same situation. Different state of denial." I arranged a row of glasses with more force than necessary. "I'm not closing the door permanently. I just need them to respect my boundaries for once." The party itself was a revelation. My home filled with people who genuinely cared about me, who had chosen to be there not out of obligation but because they valued my company. The conversations flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and warmth. Looking around at the gathering, I realized I had built something precious here, a life that reflected my true self, not the person my mother had tried to shape me into. James Wilson arrived with a potted plant and a shy smile. We had maintained a careful friendship in the aftermath of his broken engagement, bonding over the shared experience of seeing through Christine's facade. "This is really lovely, Sonia," he said, surveying the home I had created. "You should be proud." I am, I realized. For maybe the first time in my life, I'm genuinely proud of myself. Andrew joined us, handing each of us a glass of wine. "As your attorney, I advise you to make a toast to your new beginning," he said with a grin. I raised my glass. To new beginnings, hard boundaries, and friends who become family. Later, as the party wound down and guests began to depart, I found myself alone in the kitchen with Grace Wilson. She had arrived with James, but maintained a respectful distance throughout the evening. "I wanted to thank you," she said quietly. "Your courage saved my son from what would have been a disastrous marriage." "I didn't do it for that reason," I admitted. "I know, which makes it all the more admirable." She hesitated. "Have you spoken with your sister recently?" I shook my head. "Not directly. I hear she's doing better, though." "She is," Grace confirmed, surprising me. "We've met for coffee a few times. I think she's genuinely trying to change, to understand where things went wrong." "That's good to hear." The experience was transformative for James as well. He's become more discerning, less willing to accept surface charm as a substitute for character. She smiled slightly. "Sometimes the most painful experiences yield the most valuable lessons." After the last guest departed, I sat alone on my back porch, listening to the night sounds and feeling a deep sense of peace. The journey to this moment had been brutal at times, but necessary. I had discovered strength I didn't know I possessed, and built a life that truly reflected my values. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. The party looked nice. Maybe next time. I didn't respond immediately. The old Sonia would have jumped at this tentative olive branch, eager to restore harmony at any cost. The new Sonia recognized that real reconciliation would require more than superficial pleasantries. It would demand accountability, respect, and changed behavior. I wasn't sure my mother was capable of those things, but I was no longer responsible for managing her emotions or enabling her behavior. I typed a simple reply. "Maybe. When you're ready to have an honest conversation about what happened." Setting the phone aside, I looked up at the stars. The wedding that never was had cost me my illusions about family, but had given me something far more valuable, the truth about myself. I had discovered that standing up for myself wasn't selfish, but necessary, that setting boundaries wasn't cruel but healthy, and that sometimes the family we choose is more nurturing than the one we're born into. The house around me represented more than just a financial investment. It was tangible proof that I had reclaimed my future from those who had tried to sacrifice it for their own purposes. Every corner reflected choices I had made for myself, not compromises made to please others. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. My mother might call ready to make genuine amends or simply to continue our dance of denial. Christine might eventually find her way to a sincere apology, or she might cling to her narrative of victimhood. The extended family might finally see the truth of what had happened, or they might choose the comfort of my mother's version of events. Whatever came, I was ready. No longer the family peacekeeper, the reliable one who could be counted on to sacrifice her needs for others, I had become something far more powerful, a woman who knew her own worth and was unafraid to protect it. As I finally headed inside to my own bed in my own home, I felt not just closure but a genuine excitement for what lay ahead. For the first time in my life, my future belonged truly to me, unencumbered by toxic family expectations or manipulations. It was a gift I had given myself, paid for dearly, but worth every penny. What would you do if someone you loved betrayed your trust and stole from you? Would you have the courage to stand up for yourself, even if it meant being labeled the villain in their story? Sometimes the hardest battles we fight are against those closest to us, but they're often the most necessary for our growth. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you the strength to write your own story on your own terms, whatever that might mean for you.